From the heart of Denton, Texas, it's the Creators Table with your host, publisher, writer, and creator of Half-Ass Publishing's Some Big Lumberjack and the man behind Bootlegger Comics, Chris Peel.
Tonight on the Creators Table, Chris is joined by a comic book veteran whose career spans nearly 40 years. From mainstream comics to the independent frontier, he's built a reputation for dynamic storytelling, unforgettable artwork, and a lifelong passion for the medium. Tonight, we're not just talking comics. We're talking about the journey, the lessons learned, and what keeps the creative fire burning after nearly 4 decades. The Creators Table welcomes Dan Lawlis. And now your host, Chris Peel.
Hey, hey, baby, I like it like that. I like it like that. Hey, oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Creators Table. Well, I am super excited. My guest this week, no pussyfooting around. Let's get right to it. Dan Lawlis. Flawless Lawless. Here we go. Hello, sir.
I don't know about
Thank
that.
you.
Hey, you know what you need on YouTube? You need a
What's
personality, and you appear to have one.
Sometimes I'm bashful.
Oh, sometimes. Oh my gosh, I've seen some guys get on, and they're like, they're just like dead, like, hello, this is my comic book, and I'm just,
Yeah.
and then they proceed to tell you the whole story, and then when he goes into this part of the bar, he sees it, and I'm just like, my God, guys don't know how to pitch a book. It's got to be like. His parents were killed in front of him and when he was a child, and then a giant bat appeared to him and decided to become the Batman. It's like you need a couple of lines, and you got to hook people like that. And if you don't do it, it's like you got to sell. People don't realize, Jack Kirby needed Stan Lee.
Right.
He needed that guy to get out there and go, hey, true believers, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. And, it's funny you say that, because that really was my experience when it came to doing conventions. So when I was, had my first book out in the early 2000s, we were hitting every convention we could. And the biggest thing, when we did well at the shows, but we engaged every time somebody would break that little imaginary border from one table in front of our table, we engaged them right away. We're like, hey, have you heard of, Half-Ass Publishing? Hey, have you heard of stuff? Well, you're going to learn about it now. Let me tell you something, And we had a whole, spiel, right? And we worked off each other and joked and had people laughing. But I noticed a lot of other people who weren't as successful, they'd be sitting there doodling in their little sketchbook, and somebody would walk by, hello, and go back to it. It's the same idea. You've got to be engaging.
Well, people want you like that. Like even in comics, like what is this stuff we're doing with these stories? We're communicating with each other. Everyone has the same shared dream of wanting to fly. That's Superman. That's when you write down a story, you're saying, hey, I have this dream. Do you have the same dream? And they go, yes, I do. That's be cool. That's what comics are about, sharing these experiences. And so if you're just going to sit in yourself and just sit there and draw, you're saying to people, I don't really feel like sharing anything I have with you. And I think that people have to realize that that's what it's about and come out of their shell. We're all introverts. I was like really super quiet young person, Yeah. And so I had to really work at it and try to say, who am I? And then express that. And I had it in me, but I had to pull it out of me.
Right. Sometimes you got to dig for it, and it's difficult. It's difficult to make that decision and make that effort initially. Like you said, it does get easier. I know I got nervous the first time I came on, Comicsgate Commandos and Katie did and all that. I was nervous getting on there, and I remember the first, I think it was Comicsgate Commandos, like they were like, give us a pitch. And I was just like,
yeah.
But I kind of snapped out of it eventually. I think maybe I had malaria or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny. I was like, I have this buddy, James Mealy. Sometimes you see him as Sequential Treasures in the chat and stuff. And I was talking about probably a couple of years back before I got into this, and I said, James, I would love to go on those shows, but I can't do it. I get nervous. I get terrible stage fright. If I ever get in front of a crowd of people, my heart's beating. I'm sweating. My voice is shaking. It's like I said, there's no way I'm going to get online and do that. And then I was just in the chat once, and I was in some group, whatever, and the guy said, we just kind of need people to sell a comic book. Like I think it was David Williams' Truth, Justice, American Way. They kind of just needed bodies. So I went in there and I was super duper nervous, but it's like we did what 5 hours. After 5 hours, I sort of broke through and I could start to relax and be myself, and it was fine after that. But man, it was kind of like if the more you do this stuff, the more you just learn to relax, be who you are. Don't try to be anything crazy, and it's. I think the more I do it, the better I get at being myself. I am goofy and fun normally, but you got to do that online. It's not that easy,
It really isn't. And especially if you're, it's just you, right? And you're, live streaming is for me is easier because you can start riffing off of other people. Yeah. But man, doing like a live stream on your own or doing
I did that
just
a
like
couple times.
Recorded video. Oof.
Well, you know what? I can actually do it if I'm drawing, because what happens is I'm drawing. I can draw a little bit, and then have it form a thought and then say something.
Yeah.
But if I'm just sitting there, I'd be like,
what's up?
Let me think of something. Oh, I know. I have another thought. Wait, let me think another few more minutes to think of something else. But yeah, when I'm talking to somebody, then it's natural. That's what that's the fun. The thing that's fun for me is talking to people. I'll tell you, when I got into comics, it was before all this, before live streaming and all this video stuff, it was really lonely. It really, really stunk. Because I'm starting off in my parents' basement, working, and it's like that was it. I didn't, I had my old time friends, but they were moving away, and I'm like, what am I? I got nobody, and it was actually, you get a little bit, how it goes, cabin fever. You get kind of kooky,
right?
And it just was like, I can't take this, so I, finally I moved out to in my brother's house, and that helped a little bit, but it's tough. So I'm saying this is great now. This is so much better. There's comic books are tougher in some ways to sell them and everything because the comic shops are going away, but the connecting with people is way better than it was, way better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just imagine like in the 80s, did people even know what comic book creators even looked like?
Yeah.
I mean, I was a huge G.I. Joe's what got me into comics. I was about 12 or 13, and I started collecting G.I. Joe comics and the NAM. And I had no clue what any of those guys look like.
Yeah.
But then of course, and then you jump now, like who's anonymous in reality anyways anymore,
Yeah.
Everybody's out there. Everybody's got a presence.
Yeah.
But that actually makes me think of something I wanted to ask you. You're talking about when you got into comics. What started your need to create? Like what lit that fuse in you when you knew you wanted to tell stories through art? Were you always drawing when you were a kid, or was there just something that just kind of started you off? What does that look like for you?
Well, my mom was an artist, and so she instilled art into us. She would, work with us, and she didn't teach me art necessarily, but she had art around, the house and stuff but she wasn't some like hippie artist. You know what I'm saying? She was a traditional Catholic. She raised 8 kids, so her art career kind of went away. So it was just like, my dad was a salesman. So actually it's a good combination for me, sales and art,
right?
Because it's like my dad was a great salesman. He could really just sell anything to anybody because he liked people. I think he liked people a lot. He's very friendly, My mom is a just was very. I think she was pretty talented. Didn't do too much art till later, but I could tell she could draw. If she had pursued it, she would have done okay, and so.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is kind of funny, but my dad being a salesman, he would, for the Armored Dial Corporation, he sent out flyers all the time, and they were blank on one side, 8.5 by 11, right? Just a sheet of paper. We'd fold them, and we help them fold them and mail them and stuff. But I had stacks of, blank on one side, 8.5 by 11. And my mom actually didn't want us to get colour books. She wanted us to make our own thing. So I was talking about when did I start to draw? It was like really early on. And, we just sat on, I remember sitting on a step, just drawing, and it just never stopped really. So when I saw my first comic book, so I think that I had that in me, that the desire and love of art. It was like, it was instilled in me. So my mom didn't teach me art, but she exposed me to art, so to speak,
Sure.
And then, so when I drew stuff, when I saw the comics, I just loved it. The figures, the action, the color. I just, loved it. But I didn't have many comics. This is interesting too, is I didn't pick up comics off the spinner rack to read this story. I was always looking at the art. So, and I had like 10 comics, and I kind of refer to them as my art lessons. That's the way I looked at it even back then, as I was studying art. I really wanted to learn how to draw these things.
Wow.
And so it was a real drive that went from then until now. And so it never stopped, and so, I went to art school, and, I almost went into engineering, I was going to be,
no kidding.
Okay in math and science and that sort of thing. But then I went with my brother, went to art school, and he sort of showed me it. I was like, that sounds good. I think I'm going to do it because I wanted to,
Yeah.
But, so it was, I went to art school, and then I got my first job at Marvel in 1987, and I think I was 21 or something like that, 21.
So what was that like? I mean, you're looking at, you said you didn't have a lot of comics,
Right.
But you definitely loved the medium with,
Yeah.
using those 10, right, as kind of your how to draw comics, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I had
that
good
must have
ones. I had like
been-
the same as, Silver Surfer versus Thor. I had,
Oh, wow.
because when I went to the spinner rack, I would flip through all the comics, and I looked for the art that I liked. That was really the best ones, because I could tell the difference
Right.
back then between a badly drawn comic and a good one. And I always picked the best comics. So my first comics were well drawn comics, mostly, Gil Kane or something like that, or John Romita. I knew I could tell when something was good,
So it was more the art quality than it was, say, the character that
I think so.
drew you to a specific book.
But I loved the characters. I loved the stories. I read, I always reading, Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. It's Conan. I love Robert E. Howard stories. I read those like crazy. So I was really, actually, that was, talk about art. There was comics which hit me, square in the face. But then it was Frazetta's paintings that really just kicked. That was like a 1-2 punch, because I can still remember being in my at my Catholic library in grade school, and I saw Conan. I still have it over here. The cover's all ripped up and stuff, but it was Conan the Usurper, where he's chained to the floor, and there's a snake going through his legs, I just thought, I go, man, is that cool? So I picked it up. I went home. I read the heck out of it, and then I remember looking at the interior cover, and it listed, there's Conan, there's others. Oh, there's more. So this is the first time I think I ever kind of asked my dad to go to a bookstore and use my paper route money to buy a book. Like, I never bought a book before, So I bought the other Conan Frazetta covers, and probably I think it was a Boris in there somewhere too. And I just ate them up, man. It was just like, so I would read science fiction and adventure, whatever I could find, really. Yeah.
So that must have been like, you must have been over the moon, right? Like when you got that job with Marvel, that had to be I just to liken it, like initially my creativity started with music. That had to kind of almost be like, getting your first job starting in a band that's already touring, like the,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the tri-state area or something. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So what was that all like?
Well, it's funny. I almost like, I'm not sure how you describe it. I'm like, was I just too stupid to not know how difficult this was going to be? Because I was convinced I was going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to do it. But I did have some talent. We had this one time from my grade school. It was 8th grade, and we had a sort of a scholastic Olympics with all the other schools in the Detroit area. And we brought us in to do a still life. Everyone sat around, and all the best artists and that from that grade in that city, and I won. I got first place. So I knew that I had real talent. Like I knew I had natural drawing abilities, and again, probably cultivated by what my mom, cultivated in us. But so I was confident, very confident that I could draw, and I just worked and worked. There was a lot of work put into there too. It's the talent,
of course,
ability is just the beginning. Then you have to really crank out, get to it. But so I got a lot better. I mean, I could show you some of that first stuff. It's not so good, but you keep working. You're like, it's like, I'm just going to get better. Oh, that guy's good, better than me. Well, I'm going to learn how did he get better than me? Why is my stuff not as good as his stuff? Why do people say that? How can I change that? And you just you approach it that way, fix it, and it's a problem. Everything's a problem. Every job is a problem solving, like this illustration is covered. Right. What's the solution? I remember first hearing that when I was in art school, when the art directors would talk about, solutions to a promotion campaign or for advertising or something. And so you'd have you have to they would talk about like in terms of solution, like this was a good solution. And I was like, oh, that's interesting the way he said that about this art,
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of what art is. I think you got to figure it out, compose something just right, just like music, composing, putting it all together.
So one thing I'm always interested in is what, how does inspiration work for you? Do you read a book? Do you see a movie or a TV show, or read an article, or what happens to lightning strike your brain and you come up with this image or this illustration, or what is your source of inspiration, I guess, or how does inspiration work for you?
I do think it's kind of like, I see it as master and apprentice. You have, like, I see the Buscema, the Gil Kanes, the Jack Kirby as my masters, and then I'm the apprentice, and I got to try to get like them. So I'm learning the craft. But then I think that you call that inspiration, where you're inspired to do your own twist to it, or to build on it, or something like that. Yeah, and then you got to have something to say. I think that's especially when you're writing a story like this. This Barbaric Adventures I'm working on with Aaron Lepresti's book, and people are going to see me write for the first time a 12-page story, and I have something to say in it. And it's about freedom. It's about standing up and what it takes to fight for that. That sort of thing, and that's what I think the inspiration is you have to have some kind of reason to write this story, and then the inspiration to come up with a beautiful design, color, anatomy to make it happen. So that's how to execute that. So.
Yeah, I just speaking for myself. A lot of times I get inspired, or lightning will strike my brain, as I like to put it. I read a lot of history books. Most of my library is history.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll read an article on a science website or something and I'll just start thinking about. I get real fascinated about stuff, and I'll just kind of, I don't know, like a story will just kind of appear out of that in my head, or at least the basis for one.
Yeah, and you go,
like,
hey, kind of right there. There's that
Right.
hey moment,
Yeah.
right? Like, I know.
right, exactly. Like, to use the Nostradamus effect as an example, I was 13 years old watching a documentary about Nostradamus. It was such a great documentary. It was hosted by Orson Welles,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and it had a bunch of dramatizations of different events of his life, and that started out with this story of Nostradamus supposedly saying that if you drink from my skull, you'll get my powers, but if you disturb my grave, you'll die. And I was blown away by that. I watched the whole thing, but that one thing stuck with me. And then I
Yeah.
thought, like, I remember thinking, like, well, why hasn't anybody done that today? Like, why aren't people like trying to drink from the skull and all this? And that kind of lit that spark and it just, grew into this idea
Yep,
of the
that's the
story
way it
that I
works.
have now.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, and that's what usually does it for me. I'm usually inspired by something I've read or an event of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to let the voices out.
Yeah. Actually, that's the interesting thing is try to make sure you have distinctive voices for the different characters. Because there's a tendency, I think, for beginning writers like myself, is to make all the characters the same voice, or my own voice.
Right.
And you got to learn how to try to think and let that happen and bounce things off of people. So I'm kind of beginning at that, really. I don't think I'm an expert and stuff, but it's just that I think the thing is, as an artist, I've told other people's stories, and you are telling a story with the art,
Oh, yeah,
the
absolutely.
expressions that you're making. And so I am a storyteller, but I don't, it's a little different than being the story writer. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bit of a challenge to be the writer rather than and the storyteller. But it's fun. It's like, did you ever see that interview with it was like the Masters of Comic Book Art, and they had Harlan Ellison narrated it, and he interviewed a lot. He interviewed Jack Kirby, Bernie Wrightson, Neil Adams, Mobius, a whole bunch of these guys. One of them was Frank Miller. And Frank Miller said that he believes comics are one art, but he doesn't believe that's the only way it can be done. You can have collaborations, and it can have exciting things happen when one artist is sort of playing off the other. But he said it should be unified as one art. They need to work together really in unison. And that's the one thing that was really disappointing to me is when I saw Frank Miller's stuff come along, and I thought, this is really different. This is really interesting. And then I thought the industry was going to change, and it didn't really. It's the comics kind of stayed kind of like the way they were. And I thought there's so much potential here, but people just aren't tapping into it, because I can remember reading The Dark Knight when I picked it off the shelf. I'm old enough to have picked off #1 off the shelf. And I remember I had a stack of comics I brought home, and I thought, I'm just going to read this one, because I almost didn't buy it because of the 9-panel grids and the 12-panel grids. I thought, when I opened up, I don't like those. But then I saw a couple of splashes. I thought, those are cool. Oh, yeah. So I think I'm going to get it, because then again, I'm looking at it from the art point of view, right?
Sure.
So I had a stack of comics. I could still remember that clearly, picking up that one, reading that one first to get it out of the way, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was the coolest comic I've ever read. And I almost didn't want to read the other comics. Like, the other comics just looked like, there's no power. There's no power. There's no beats. That's another thing is that in the Frank Miller comic, and I think that the Japanese anime do this too. I think we should pay more attention to that. Frank did. That's why this comics are the way he is, where they have silent panels and quiet. And the panels have a certain amount of rhythm to them, like music. There's a certain rhythm to it. Even Will Eisner said the same thing, that every panel every page he does is like music. You have a beginning, a middle, end on each page. There's a point to it, and it just flows when you do that right. So I wanted to do, one of the reasons I left, several reasons I left comics, but one of them was I didn't have the time to do that. We were just cranking this crap out,
Right.
And that's why I love what's happening now in independence and Comicsgate and all this stuff. It's like, you can actually take some time. I put so much time into this Barbaric Adventures comic book, 12 pages. I put months of work into it,
I can't wait to get it.
It's just like it's the best I can do. Even if it's not the greatest comic in the world, that's the best I can do. And that's satisfying to know that my best work is on paper versus when you would hand something to Marvel. I remember one time I got a Spider-Man, a short part of a Spider-Man book, and I drew it in a sort of a Romita style. I draw my classic sort of comic book style. Okay. Well, at the time, Eric Larson was very popular, and with the skinny little legs and little ankles and stuff. And they just took my drawings and just changed them completely. And I just, that was right at the end of my comic book career. I just said, screw this. You know, it was so, I mean, it had more to do with money, but but that just made it easy. Like, I'm done with comics. You know what I mean? Like, screw it.
Right.
But, because at the time, when I had 10 years in comics, I started in 87 and 97. I was making, I think, about $400 a week. That's 20 grand. Even in 1997, that ain't much. It's 20, you know, that you can't raise a family on that. So I looked around and I found storyboards and advertising agencies, and that I could get $50 a frame, but I could do 8 or 10 of those in a day or an evening or something. And even though those jobs came infrequently, like, I get one every week or 2 weeks. Now we're talking about, $1,000 to $2,000 or $2,000 to $1,000 a week. Now we're getting up into a range where I'm 60, 70, and I can raise a family. And that's it was all about my family. I mean, I like comics, but family's first for me. I don't care compared to the two.
Right, no, absolutely.
So comics just fun. But that's I left comics and I thought I was done with them completely until crowdfunding came, and this is why I'm just so excited by it. It's like, really, you can do comics? I could possibly sort of finish my career the way it started. That would be cool, man. So
hell yeah, man.
But it's a lot of work.
Oh my gosh, dude, you're not kidding. I remember I was following Ethan on it was like 2018, 2019. And that's, he started talking about crowdfunding, and I had never heard of it. And I just was so excited because I thought I listened to what he was saying. I'm like, this sounds like an online comic book convention, and your campaign is your booth.
Yes.
And I'm like, I killed it at the conventions, right? So it's like, it got me super excited. I was going to I was going to release another issue of Some Big Lumberjack. But it just wasn't the quality, because that was it, right? I wanted whatever I did was going to be the best thing I've ever done, and that just wasn't it. So, but I am here now. But then when I finally did launch, like, holy crap!
Speaking of here now, we got some people in our chat here.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the chat. So I always get so caught up in the conversation. Let's see here, Clippa.
There's Clippa. Is that Riley?
Always.
Okay,
that's
Riley.
Riley. Yeah.
Hey, Riley.
Always good to see him.
And there's Darren, of course, who I've done. He's doing the Demifoot, and which is a really interesting. Speak of stories, you ever hear him talk about his story? It's fascinating as can be.
That's awesome.
And then there's Scribe Comics. He's got a new comic coming out. I think it's Atomic.
Oh, yeah,
What's it? What is it? Scribe Atomic.
Atomo. Heavy Atomo.
Type it in, please, then we'll see.
Let's see here.
But then there's Creative Faye is here. Wait a minute, she says the Overlord, Graybeard's Overlord. Oh my gosh. The Graybeards. That's the show I'm on every week with Gary and David and Aaron and Creative is she's always there, giving getting our goats a little bit. So it's a lot of fun. That's what's great about these shows is and you have to, if you can have a thick skin, because they're kind of like dunk tanks. You come in, you get dunked on, and if you can play along, people love it. Some people have a hard time with it. They get on, people take shots at them. Like, I think it's funny. That's my kind of sense of humor. I like cringe humor and that kind of stuff.
I mean, Gen X, that's how we bonded. That's how we bonded with other guys, was busting balls.
Right. So it's a lot of fun. I like it, and but sometimes it's as long as people don't get too far with it, But so Creative Faye has a lot of fun with us, so it's great. Heavy Atomo.
Yeah, that thing looks awesome. I've seen.
There's some debate as to how to pronounce it. I think it's a Tamo, right? I think it's Tamo. Tamo, I think.
I don't know. I ain't gonna.
Some people said, Atomo. Someone said Atomo.
Well, I'm thinking atomic, right?
Right. I was thinking that's why I was thinking atomic, like a Tamo.
We do indeed bust balls. We bust the balls of like no one else at Bootlegger Comics. What else we got here? I tease Gary a lot.
Yeah, she does some cartoons. We have fun. Gary's a good straight man, kind of,
Somebody's got to be.
Yeah, it's funny how you when you work with a couple of guys like that for a while. We have been going. I've been in there more than a couple of years, I think. You just get a feel for the kind of comedy the other person does, and you start to play off. We actually do. We recycle the same jokes half the times, but it's so funny. Katie did or something, comes in the chat and she just says hello, and we just did the same joke every time, and it's pretty fun. So,
yeah, she's great, man. She was very kind to me. And a lot of people have been, and I, like you said, you mentioned that the community is really great. Lots of great feedback. And, to kind of piggyback on something you said earlier, critique, I've always felt critique is the best way we grow.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Katie Ranch. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Katie did in her ranch.
Oh, yeah.
Oof. Riley, when he.
Oh, that was disgusting.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I was
This
on
was
that
fun,
show.
though. This is what's fun about these shows is, making, but like I say, some people have a hard time with the humor, and there's like clashes sometimes. But another thing too, I think it's unfortunate, like the whole thing about Comicsgate how it sort of happened organically online, and all these guys were speaking out against comics, and they were thinking about and maybe making even already their own comics, and then Ethan sort of came in. Everyone got excited, and everyone backed his book, and he made a ton of money. And I think some of these early guys got resentful because they thought, wait a minute, he's making all this money. We're not making. But the truth of the matter is, they probably wouldn't have made much money anyways. It's like, I think it's always Ethan made good money because he was already a highly skilled professional. And of course. It's like, that's what's going to happen. He's bringing all these people in from DC. And that's the reality of the situation. So I kind of understand. I can kind of get where some people are upset that didn't work out for them, but I don't like that bitterness. Like if Comicsgate didn't work for them, they're like, Comicsgate sucks, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, it's just an idea, it's completely open. It's freedom. You're free to. That's what I like about it. It's just there's no middleman. You're going directly to customer. Fantastic. I mean, the two things I didn't have in the comic book industry was time and money. I didn't have the time to do the comics I wanted. And I didn't have any money if I wanted to raise a family, and that's, if you're going to get talented people to make comic books, you want people to work and devote themselves to this craft. You got to give them time and money. You got to give them the two things they need. And the comic book industry never really did that very well. It's a miracle that we got the comics that we did. We had some crazy talented guys like Jack Kirby could draw super fast, and there's a lot of guys that sort of they may manage to, I think, scratch their creative itch by developing a style that was quick, like you'd have Walt Simonson or a Mike Mignola, and their style was simple enough that you could do it fast, and do monthly comics and stuff like that, or even the Ramirez and stuff. It's still somewhat simplified style. But if you wanted to try to do an Ethan Van Sciver style, forget about it. I don't even know how he ever did monthly comics because this stuff is so freaking detailed. I look at it and I think, as a professional artist, if I did that style, it would take me a week to do a page, no easily. I take a day on to do a panel. So it's like, people like complain, late books. Well, that's what it takes to do that. And then life gets in the way and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Too, so.
Oh yeah, of course.
But
it's funny talking about Comicsgate. Of course, on X, there's a lot of voices about Comicsgate, good and bad. The thing that I always thought was just a stupid critique of Comicsgate was how people would say Comicsgate is got low quality projects and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I tell them, like, of course it does. Of course there are low quality projects out there that, fly the Comicsgate banner, because there is nobody within Comicsgate keeping them from producing the story they want to, producing the story that they're able to, right?
Yeah.
So you got somebody who's got this passion project. And I mean, I remember when I first started with Some Big Lumberjack, I got so frustrated with trying to find an artist, I started trying to do the art myself. Thank God we found one, because my stuff was terrible. I mean, lima bean heads, and one guy looked like he had polio. He had like a noodle arm, and then the other arm was all big and muscular. But if somebody wants to do it, and they are only able to do it the way they can without maybe hiring a pro or what have you, more power to you. And you know what? If it's an interesting story, somebody's going to go out there and back it. But you got to start somewhere, So to say, there's terrible projects in Comicsgate, yeah, you're right. There's also great projects. There's mediocre projects. There's middle of the line projects, because no one's being held back.
Right. Yeah. Actually, for I always say to people who are writers, beginning writers in comics, do stick figures. Learn how to get timing down, and panels and compositions down, and stuff like that. That's what I recommend is to draw. Mike Barron said he used to do that, but he doesn't do it anymore. But that is so, it is a visual medium, and you have to think. Yeah. You have to think artistically. If you don't, then if you just write a story, you have to count on it that artist knows what they're doing, that they can interpret it and tell a story.
Absolutely.
But so it's take advantage of your artist.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I give the artists I work with, whether it's interior pages or a cover or an illustration, I give the artist a lot of freedom, because the way I feel is they're much more of an expert on how to direct a reader's eye across the page than I am. And, I originally started writing like screenplays. So my scripts for comics were very similar, panel one, a description, words, blah, blah. But I'm changing that up, and I'm just doing like page one, just kind of a description of what's happening on the page. And then I let the artist that I'm working with kind of, flex their muscles, if you will.
Well, it depends on the artist too, because some artists want more direction and some want less. It's some people just want that freedom, but that's it's a little dangerous. You're handing them freedom, because there are plenty of experiences throughout the history of comics where someone sent a script to somebody and got back just incomprehensible nonsense. It's like especially in the independents where there's the artist isn't very experienced, and they don't really know how to tell a story. There's more than
that's where your due diligence comes in, right?
Yeah, well, there's more to tell. Sometimes young beginning artists don't understand there's more to telling a story than just pretty pictures. You gotta be able to to put the pictures together in such a way that really works.
Absolutely. What's the future hold for Dan Lawlis? What's coming up? I know you're working on the barbarian stories, stories with Aaron Lopresti. Do you have plans for something after that, or what's?
Yeah, I mean, I have had a story written and sketched out for a couple of years now. I just haven't gotten to it. Like I want to do it, but it's a lot of work, and I'm still doing some advertising stuff and to pay the bills. So it's kind of making a comic book to draw it is extremely time consuming. It's like, that's one of the reasons I got out of comics too. I wanted a life, and you could do the storyboards, and I'll do, that's maybe that I worked on it that weekend, but then I have several days off where I can kind of recover, because storyboards is kind of intense. You're drawing very quickly, very fast as you can to get this stuff. Okay. It's got to be done tomorrow. and that's why I'm a night owl, because I'm used to that. You know, get the assignment at 5, have to be done at 3 a.m, and send it off. And the funny thing is, I can remember before the days of internet, I actually would, draw all night, and I took the art to the house of the art director and put it in his mailbox. So it was just kind of crazy, what you
definitely last minute. That's
yeah. Oh, it's always last minute. They work up right up to the wire, and they're getting on a plane. You're taking this stuff and going to pitch it somewhere, So yeah.
I tell you what, man. With all of the experience you've got working in the mainstream, working in the indies. I guess, I just from listening to you in the past, I know, your feelings on the mainstream publishers. What about indie publishers? Like, was there any real difference? Was it the same kind of, something you created, you didn't get the full credit for, or what was really
my comic career consisted of mainstream publishers. I worked for Marvel, DC, just one story for DC, and then Dark Horse. I really didn't work for many other independent, publishers, except like now I have done, like I did a few covers for Frazetta and that sort of thing, like that, their Death Dealer magazine and stuff like that, just did something for Rob Liefeld cover, and just did something for Billy, the Closing Out Tonight, the Billy Rand comic. And
I consider Dark Horse to be an indie. Are they considered mainstream? Yeah.
Yeah, they were, sure. Yeah. At the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Mainstream, I would say they'd kind of almost refer to them as the big three, kind of like they were smaller than DC, but they had they had Hellboy. They had the licensed title, like Aliens, and so they did all right.
Star Wars,
yeah, Star Wars too, yeah. So, and then, but I that was my favorite place to work, by the way, actually, because it's just Marvel was, it just, that was my experience where I penciled something and they put any ink on it. When I went to Dark Horse, they're like, who do you want to ink this? Who do you, that makes all the difference in the world to me. Like, I can pick my inker, I can find out, they cared, and that may be just the difference between editors too, because it could be maybe just, the editors I worked on it for Marvel, they just didn't care about what they're doing or whatever. But I don't know. I think I would have had a totally different experience in comics if I was able to walk into those offices and talk to people and interact with them and stuff like that. It would have changed. It would have been a completely different career for me. But because I'm in Michigan, I'm FedExing everything, I'm not talking to anybody. I don't talk to any other pros. It was,
man.
Yeah, it was really difficult to do. Amazingly, I did that for 10 years. So yeah.
Wow.
But a lot of guys, no one really works in the office. It's just that,
sure,
it's helpful if you can drive there in an hour or something, and walk in and talk. When you meet someone you're going to work for, then you're a human being to them suddenly, and it makes a huge difference. So.
Interesting. So, what do you what do you think is something that what would you tell a person who's trying to break in to the industry, or somebody who's just trying to create a comic? Like, what kind of advice would you give to them, or whether it be creative or from a business standpoint, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for someone just breaking into the industry, I would say don't.
Oh, I snorted.
Really, it's like, I hate to say it, but especially with AI coming, I think that we're all scared of it. We're all terrified of it because it can draw perfectly, and it's good. And right now, like I remember just a few years ago when you had the 6-figure things. We're like, 6 fingers. Like, there's another. We know we could tell AI because it had 6 fingers. Now that's gone. They figured out the 5 fingers things. Now, next, and then right now I'm saying, like, you'll never do a Bernie Wrightson illustration. That could be coming, and it's like, it's really scary because it's good. The fear is, it's not that it's going to ever be necessarily even better. but it'd be good enough. And
Right.
with the and that's all they really need. It's like that Superman face is drawn perfectly. That's good enough. Because the way, like I said, just was talking about the industry where that they just that my pencils come in. They're like, who can do this? Can you do this? And they didn't care. They just put anybody on there. Get the thing out and done out. Get it out the door. We got a deadline to meet. That's the mentality in the major industry. So I think that the comic book companies are kind of don't really have a future for creative people, really. And also, I think that, and I think back now, I think I would have been better off if I had drawn my own comics and sold them 30 years ago, because like I'll get something from Marvel every once in a while and saying, here's a copy, here's your free copy. Well, of reprints of they don't give me any money. It's just like, here's a copy of your work that we've been selling for the past 30 years. But if you create your own character, you can sell that for the rest of your life. You can keep the creator owned crowdfunding is what I believe in. So I'm all about the independence. I just don't have any interest in the companies. I don't want to work for companies. I want to do my own thing, and otherwise forget it, because it's just you can't make any money. I mean, the money's going out because the kids aren't reading them. Like I grew up with the spinner rack stuff. That was how we all got our comics in the beginning. That's how comics became a medium, because they were in every single store, every convenience store, drugstore. There was a spinner rack, and you go camping. There's in the camp store. There's a spinner rack, and so I got all my comics that way. But now then they had the generation of everyone was reading them, and it became popular as collectibles. That collector comic book shops started showing up, and people would go to those. And then the spinner racks lost a lot of their people, and they lost the money and all that kind of stuff. So for whatever reason, there were probably a number of reasons, just the logistics of this and the low price point. But when that went away, kids don't read them anymore. So how do we get comics in front of people for them to read? That's the challenge now, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, people are still reading. There just seem to be abandoning the American comic book industry and going over to the manga model. And I think definitely the problem with Marvel and DC is that they're corporations. They're these large corporations, and one thing corporations hate is risk. They Batman.
Well, they sure risked a lot by making all their characters gay.
Well, yeah, that's I guess that's on the editors to a degree, but
well, that's just crazy is to talk about the reader not knowing their readership, or trying to. I'm not sure what they were thinking there, but these activists, they got these young girls, the milkshake girls. They come in from college, fresh out of college, and humanity, they're general studies, whatever it is they have, and they're all taught this, very like, oh, we got to change the world with having diversity and all this stuff. And it's like, you guys you're not thinking the way Stan Lee and Jack Kirby thought. They thought, how can I sell this comic book? When you see an interview with Jack Kirby, they ask him, there's that same interview that I mentioned, that one with Masters of Comic Book Art. He says his inspirations were the fact that he had to make sales. So he couldn't do gangsters anymore. He had to go, so he went to the Bible, and he came up with Galactus and Silver Surfer. But he was trying to entertain people. He was trying to get comics that people go, wow, that's what they wanted. And that's what you got to think. You got to think, what's going to make them go, wow? Not let's reprogram these people with some new lifestyle, whatever like that. And and then they come at you, go, oh, you're homophobic, and I'm like, no, what? Because I say. Why don't you see grandma superheroes? Are people grammaphobic? Are they anti-grandmas? Do they hate grandmas? No, because they don't want to be a grandma. They don't fantasize about being grandma. And it's the same thing about the gay stuff. Isn't that people hate gays or something? They don't want to be gay. They're not going to. If you're a young guy, you say, hey, you want to read this gay story? Like, no, Yeah. So it's just stupid. It's not. They have this agenda, and they don't understand that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about male power fantasies. We're talking about, what do people want to be? I want to fly. I want to bust through a brick wall and smash things. that's what you got to think about when you're trying to sell comics. Right. Like, what do I dream of, and then is that the same dream someone else has? That's good. Now you can have, if they can diversify and get books into the hands of women, they want you like manga, go for it, but don't abandon your readers. Don't take Iron Man and change him into a woman, or Thor into a woman. That's not a male power fantasy anymore. And it's so stupid. I don't know what they're thinking. They're like, it doesn't make any sense, but it sort of makes sense in what they're trying to do, sort of, social engineer and stuff, but it's not going to work for one thing. And it'll destroy the industry.
That's been evident for sure.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. Let's see. So, Cody at Subjugates Comics. My brother's Aliens collection absorbed my whole childhood. Yeah, man. I loved all those Dark Horse, Alien, and Predator, and Star Wars books.
Those are well drawn
back in the 90s.
Pretty good art in that stuff. Great.
What else here? People want to do cool stuff, not gay stuff.
Exactly.
Most people, yeah.
Now, maybe, the thing is, if the gay people want stories, and they're gay, make them for gay people, but don't change the Iceman into a gay character. Now, I'm saying that's not what most people, because most people are heterosexual, most people want. So you got to think about a subset of a subset. First off, comic collectors and readers are a very small subset of humanity. Yeah. Then you got to take a subset of that small subset. Mm-hmm. You're not going to sell any comics. So,
and that's one thing Shane always likes to talk about or mention rather on some of his Shane Davis on some of his videos is Marvel had 7 titles in the top 50 comics of the entire year last year.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Because when I got in 87, Marvel had already been dominating with X-Men for about 10 years. And that lasted another additional 10 years where X-Men outsold Batman and Superman by far every single month. There was no question about it. And to take that success and drive it into the dust, I mean, you got to really almost go out of your way to do that. Because that you have these characters, to me, the Marvel characters, the X-Men and Daredevil and Thor and Spider-Man and Captain America, those were cool characters. I thought that even though Batman was kind of cool, actually Frank Miller kind of made him more cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I still thought he doesn't have any powers. He wasn't quite as interesting. He wasn't as colorful. And Superman, I thought, was a little dorky. Aquaman was a little bit dorky, I would still, if you got a good artist, you could, and they could tell a good story, it would have been fine, but it just overall, Marvel had the heavy hitters, the ones that kids liked the most. They were more popular,
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, I was a Spider-Man fan when I was a kid. I mean, I still got pictures of when I went and saw him at Toys R Us when I was like 6 or 7,
Yeah.
And that was 82, something like that, 81. And it's I don't know, man. It's just I remember when X-Men was just everywhere, and the thing is, I refused to buy an X-Men comic because everybody was buying X-Men. I'm like, I'm not getting into that. I don't want any part of that. So I was happy with my G.I. Joe and my Nam. Those are the two.
It'd be a better pick, I'll tell you
that. Right.
Yeah.
And then later I got in my 20s, I started getting into Spider-Man and I've always gravitated more towards really weird stuff, like Cancer Man and the Elvis Mandible and all this kind of stuff. But anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I like to get diverse stuff too, but more again, from the art point of view. And that's why I ended up getting Judge Dredd and, with some of those artists there that were, Cam Kennedy and because I thought these guys are really doing cool stuff. So I ended up, reading some of the Eagle comics and stuff like that, and also once I was in as a professional, I would be buying the independents to possibly get work from them, to try to get a job from them. So I had collected some of these other, smaller company, comics just for that reason. But Yeah, but Marvel's was really, that was it. Like that was. I thought when I got my job at Marvel, I thought this is it. I'm never going to do anything other than draw for Marvel for the rest of my life. So, but
And
things
then
are
the
changing.
reality set in. Yeah, right.
Well,
So here's
it's just
Clippa. We got Clippa here in the chat. Captain America deserves better. More Wolverine crossovers. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Captain America is a great character. Well, look, but didn't they make him into a Nazi or something? Oh my gosh,
Did they?
that was such a slap in the face.
Oh,
Yes,
Captain
they
America.
did.
They made him
a
Hydra guy, right?
Yeah. He and it wasn't just like a clone or something. That was the real guy or something. I don't know what it was, but it was just like slap in the freaking face, man. And it just and they they're doing that on purpose. These people are actually the extreme left. I mean, the extreme left.
They hate
came into comics, came into control, because when I was in comics, these guys, I think they all leaned left, but they still loved America. They didn't look at America as some kind of evil force in the world. They maybe disagreed with this or that, but these people actually, this new left actually hates America. I think we're evil. And I'm just like, well, that's bad, because you're trying to sell to people who don't think that way, like that,
Right.
So,
no, I agree.
It's kind of crazy.
We're coming up on the hour mark here.
Didn't that go fast? Holy shit!
Yeah, it does, man. This has been a really great conversation. So, is there anything you want to mention here before we sign off, or any words of wisdom to anybody out there?
I don't know. It's because I'm trying to figure out too.
Right.
I would like to do more comics and stuff, but it's like I need to get income from that. So that's the real trick. Is I can sit there and just draw a comic book, but can I sell it and make it and promote it and we're all trying to figure out how to do that. It's pretty tricky, because some of the initial sales, Ethan had huge sales, and in the beginning there, anyone who was even connected with Ethan had residual huge sales. And that seems to have kind of dissipated to a certain degree, because he's had people on his show, and even Darren has been on his show and didn't get the bump that smaller independent creators used to get on Ethan's show. Right. So we got to think about ways of going about it. And that's another thing too, is it's not really fair to just go to Ethan and say, hey, count on him. We have to think creatively ourselves. Try to come up with our own ideas and our own way of promoting and doing these shows that gets the attention and gets people looking at our books too. You can't just rely on one person and then get mad when he doesn't deliver. So
that's right.
So that's a challenge. It's a real challenge that we all are facing, and but that's okay. That's nothing really new, actually.
Right. It was bound to happen. It's inevitable. The reality is, and I say, I'll say this all long day. I mean, Ethan Van Sciver's one who put crowdfunding on the map.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, he's why everybody knows what it is.
Right, because he's got a personality. He's super charismatic. Personality that people just I mean, he's talented on many different levels. It's like I mean, he can do his own show. I mean, that's crazy. He can do his own show, and it's freaking entertaining as heck.
Yeah.
But
Shane's on that wavelength too. Like I really
Shane
like
too.
Shane's show, The Ballers. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
a lot of great shows out there.
Yeah, but that's funny. You mentioned that though. It's like, I am really conservative, and I don't joke. I don't really swear much or tell dirty jokes or anything. Going on these shows, I'm like, holy.
I bet
they've corrupted me. I'm like my humor now. I'm saying stuff to my wife, and she's like, "What?
You got to stop hanging around those guys."
She has said that. She goes, "You're picking up off this stuff," and I know I think it's funny. I always like funny, but just that I'm saying it's new to me that you mentioned the bust and balls kind of stuff. I really never had other creators to bounce off of any ideas or something like that, or jokes, and so it's true when you get a bunch of guys together, it can get a little lewd and crude, which is, and even the graybeards, we had somebody contact us, contact Gary, who was, conservative Christian, going, you guys need to really clean it up there on that show, because we can't really watch it. And and Gary told us that, but like, and he's like, so we did, like, for about an episode or two.
Well, kudos for putting in the effort. I would have told him to go stick it.
Well, I understand that, if you can't really recommend it to a young person or something like that, if we're going to be, saying a lot of crude stuff, but, I can't help it. We just go with what's funny, and fun, and the chat likes it.
Funny and fun.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, I would say the only thing I would say is just to go check out Barbaric Adventures, guys. It's if you haven't, and that's going to be good. That'll be my. It's kind of, I'm getting a little nervous now. Like, hey, shit, what if it sucks?
Oh,
what if people come back? I mean, it's going to be well drawn, and it's going to make sense. But will they? Well, I'm just afraid they're going to just go, this isn't that great, though.
Come on. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
awesome.
you can't, you don't know.
You can't help it, right? No, I get it. I get it. But I'm super excited to get my copy. I love the cover, man. When you put, when you put that red background on it, that just
made a difference.
Changed. Oh my gosh! And it's really says a lot about what color can do.
Yeah.
Because man, when you posted that red one, I was just like, oh wow.
Yeah. It's funny too is talk about, like, I'm almost a little bit out of practice because I was, after 97, I didn't do that much comics, all advertising, and since I've been back into comics this past few years, I've gotten better. Like, I'm better artist than I was a couple years ago. So that's myth that you get old, you don't get you lose it is bullshit. I think you lose it when you get too senile to do it, but as far as the skills, I have the drive, I have the passion still, I have the love. I look and think, how can I make that cooler? How can I make that better? Well, then let me study. As long as that doesn't go away, you will improve. And so I see stuff that I did a couple years ago, and I'm cringing a little bit, going, that doesn't look so
well,
good.
it's complacency, man. Complacency just can kill talent so fast. And with you doing the advertising stuff like that, you obviously kept your chops up, and
still drawing.
Kept the skill set sharp, and then you getting back into comics. And I mean, I love your art, man.
Thanks.
I think I've kind of made it clear I'm a bit of a fanboy, but I've loved the pinup I got is freaking great.
Hey, you got number one. You got the number one. That's so fun, isn't that? When I saw your name, I said, "Hey, you got I know this guy," like that's a kind of exciting thing, So.
Yeah, and I really geeked out when I saw that note and the little little sketch.
That's the only thing.
I gotta frame that too.
It's funny because I don't send that much original artwork. I don't sell that much stuff, period. So I have time, and I have to say, I can't. I actually like packaging it all up, put a little personal note in there.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun because I would think that I'm trying to think of myself like what I would like, and I think if I got a little note or something, that would be fun. And so I try to do that because I think a lot of guys, they'll throw in a little print, they'll throw in some cards. I don't really have anything on hand, but I can sit down and do a quickie sketch, and put it in there as a thank you. And why not?
Dude,
right?
That's worth more than a card. I'll tell you that right now. Like I did not expect that. I was blown away, and I totally geeked out. It was
the funny thing is those little quick sketch sometimes they look nicer than the art piece.
Well, not in this case. I'll say that.
I'm just saying that I've like done them like I'll sell the artwork like I never liked that, but the sketch is really nice. Because you're loose and you're just loose and you're kind of just throwing whatever comes in your mind and just like your sketchbook kind of thing. And the light sketches are sometimes kind of fun. They're just they're you're relaxed and stuff.
Absolutely. So do you have I know we're getting at the end here, but a question just popped in my head. Do you have something that is your favorite thing to draw? Do you have a favorite subject? Do you have a favorite character? Do you have something that really stands out as something you just love drawing?
Well, it's got to be Conan. And that's what that's why I did this Barbaric Adventures with this similar character to Conan. And the story that I have written that I've sketched out but not finished, it's a Conan-esque character. It's not a rogue. He's not a barbarian. He's a nobleman, but he's built like Conan. He's tough. He's badass. That's my favorite. Drawing the figure in motion, and I love that. The power and the human figure, both male and female. It's when you draw it right, it's got soul. It's, that's what I like when you get a drawing right. I can only describe it as it's got a soul. It's like I got that. Like you feel, you go, that's it. You come out the next day, you go, that's it. That's still good. The other drawings you do, you go, ooh, that just it's like nails on the chalkboard to me,
Yeah.
So
well, the thing that always strikes me is when an artist draws a character or a portrait or what have you, and there may be just a slight expression on the face, but they're able to do it in a way where it this may sound weird, but it's just so expressive. Whether it's the shape of the eyes and the slight shape of the mouth, it's saying so much without having to be, overdone or exaggerated or whatever. And that's always impressed me. Is that'll make me stop, when I'm doom scrolling, that'll make me stop dead in my tracks. If I see just a kind of a I don't want to say basic, but a basic, drawing of somebody, but that face, it's subtle, but it just, I don't know. There's something about it that makes it so expressive. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, yes, but it has to have a discipline, like of drawing it thousands of times. So I know exactly what that line of the eye, the shape of it. I know what the white shape of it looks, interior of the eye. I know everything, every shape about the face, and so then I can get that. I know how the lip turn the lip just at the end of a little more smile or a little less smile, and that's control from discipline and learning the art, how to draw, things from drawing it so many times and study. It's like learning a language. It's like learning Chinese. You study it, you learn it. It takes a long time. First, it seems like I can't understand it. It makes no sense. All of a sudden it makes sense. And that's what that comes from just working and working and working. So
I find it absolutely fascinating.
Oh, thanks, man. I look at music that was the same way. I go, gosh, how do you guys do that?
Music is very similar. And it's funny, you talked about how your mom was into art and exposed you to art and all that kind of stuff. I hear a lot of the same thing from musicians, where, my dad would play, R&B all the time, or blues or rock, and always just being around that. And they're not necessarily, like, their dad or their mom might not necessarily have been a musician, but that exposure to that art, that's what really kind of ignites that flame.
Yes.
The funny thing with me, my mom hated music. My mom and dad split when I was 4. She hated music. Every car she bought up until like the late 80s only had an AM radio, because she just listened to medical talk radio all the time. It was torture.
Oh my gosh.
And I loved music, but where the hell did that come from? I wasn't surrounded by it, but that's why I think the whole creativity thing is just so fascinating. Everybody's got such a different story.
Yeah.
And the creative mind is just a masterpiece.
I don't understand it, to tell you the truth. Sometimes I'll sit down and draw something and I'm not really sure how it works. And so it's fascinating to me. You got the skills and you got the, that's the training, but then, like you said, where does the idea that like, I don't know, draw some guy with 2 heads or something. I don't know. Like, where did that come from? All of a sudden you'll have this idea, and it's funky and it's weird. And, it's kind of, it's just dreams here, that where did the dreams come from? I don't know, So.
I've gotten into a trance. I call it a trance state. When I was playing guitar and playing in bands, there'd be certain songs where I would just, I'd start soloing or whatever, and I would just get into a trance. And that's the only way I can describe it. And, it would end up being some of the best stuff musically I'd ever done, but I'm not thinking about anything. It's just that music is just kind of going through me. It's going through just like, it's like I'm passing through something's passing through me.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly. It's like when I'm doing art, I would describe it the same way. As when I say soul, it almost has a sound. You know what I mean? It's like it's saying something. It's you can hear it. You know, even though it's not
yeah,
saying anything. So it's very there are similarities to music and art. You know,
the creative
sure.
mind, man, it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a blast. I've had such a great time talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
It's fun.
And you're going on to Billy's
Maybe, yeah.
live
It looks like
stream?
he put a link in the King's Room, so I think it might be on his channel. I don't know.
All right, man. So go follow him over there to Billy's closeout.
Yeah.
And any last words for the audience?
No, that's
Nope.
it. Yeah.
Bye.
We'll see you. Actually, now you part of the Katie Did's group, whatever. Kate, the Good Morning Comics Aid.
I get on there every now and then. It's hard for me because I'm working. I'm at work when she's doing her show, and then when she was doing the After Dark, I was in bed.
Yeah.
Boomer.
Yeah. Also the After Dark show, it's more intense, like drama at this time, anyways. The Good Morning stuff is more of a comic book and promotion stuff, which is more my speed. So that's why I've never really been invited on the evening show, but I don't really know if that's a good fit for me, you know. But
right, I hear you.
It's fun though. I love all the people that come in and try to help us sell comics. I mean, that's just, I look at people and think, can you help us sell comics? It's really nice when people do that, Katie, you know, and that sort of thing. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you came on this show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week on The Creators Table. And here we go.